my uncle said to me, okay, yeah, you own this property, but really the bank owns that property because you have a mortgage on it, and until you pay off that mortgage, it doesn't really belong to you. Now, David, Brandon, and I know that's not true.
Yep.
That's not true.
You still have title.
The bank owns the loan.
Yep.
The bank owns the loan. You own the property. If the bank owns, if you have an 80-20 loan, let's say $100,000 property, and you put down $20,000, the bank doesn't own $80,000 of that property. The bank owns an $80,000 loan to you. You own 100% of the property. If the bank owned 80%, then the bank should be paying 80% of the real estate taxes. If the bank owned 80%, then the bank should be paying 80% of the insurance premiums, right? But they don't, because they don't own the property. They just own the loan. Okay, that's key, because what that means is you stand to benefit from whatever happens to that property, not the bank. If the property goes up 10% in value, the bank doesn't get 10% more value from the property. You do, because you're the sole owner of the property. That's actually a really important distinction, because one of the key investing principles of real estate is you get all the upside benefit of owning the property. The bank still only owns the loan that you're paying. So the reason that that's important too is it means if you can increase the value of that property, you can borrow more money against that property as collateral.
Like what you're saying is like there's these concepts that, especially when we talk real estate all the time with advanced people, that we just talk advanced stuff, but like this is the fundamentals, this is a building block for what it takes to build a real estate empire.
Yeah, and if you're an advanced investor, we'll get to something that's going to really benefit you in a little bit. But for the rookies out there, you got to understand this. The key attraction to real estate is when you own real estate and you owe money to a bank, you get to use that real estate to create income, to add value, and you get to benefit from it, and the bank just gets your loan payments.
Unless you don't pay, and then the bank comes.
Unless you don't pay.
They take the property.
That's right.
Legally, yeah. That's where that
exactly. Yeah, it can happen both ways. But really, what my uncle said is not true. The bank does not own 80% of my property. I still own 100% of it. And that's true for every real estate investor. So the guy I was mentoring, I needed to explain that to him because that's how he sees, here's how I grow my net worth by improving property that I own and gaining more rents from it. The second thing that I had him do, and this is something everybody who's listening should do right now. If you've never done this, this is the first step, and I hereby, as King of the Universe, I forbid you to reach out to a mentor until you've taken this step. Go on Google, search a blank agreement of sale for your state. In Pennsylvania, it's about 19 pages long to get the Pennsylvania Association of Realtors agreement of sale. And here's what I had I had him print out all 19 pages, and I said, take this home, read it through 7 to 10 times. Don't you dare call me again until you've read through this agreement of sale 7 to 10 times. And on the 10th time that you read through it, take a highlighter and highlight each section of the agreement of sale that you still don't understand after your 7th time through. Because honestly, if you understand an agreement of sale, that's like real estate 101, and that's a superior education that most people never get because they don't take the time to understand what the tool that they're using. So with this kid, he did exactly that. He was a great mentee. Is that the word, mentee? He printed out an agreement of sale. He marked it up. He brought it back to me a week later, and we went through it together and looked at, okay, here's the parts he still didn't understand. And then he understood how to analyze a deal, like here's good numbers, here's good rents for what the price is, but he didn't understand how to make an actual offer on a property. He understood this one would be good if I was able to rent it, but how do I actually go and get it? So he and I we took a bunch of paper agreements of sale, and we plugged in dummy properties. At first, stuff that was never going to leave my office, just him and I going through it. And we plugged in the amounts, we plugged in the sales data. And here's the crowning irony. When he goes to a real estate agent, they're going to use DocuSign or something similar, what's it called, .loop, to do this. It'll be done digitally. But he would never have been comfortable filling out a DocuSign agreement of sale without me going through and doing the whole like highlighter and pen and writing into a normal agreement of sale to get him ready to make his first deal. That was really key for him.
A lot of people will ask that question, Bryce. What do you do in an escrow? What happens here? What happens there? And you're making a very good point, because everything that occurs in an escrow is coming right out of the contract.
Exactly.
That's what spells out everything that you're going to do. So if you go through there and you understand, okay, I have a 15-day inspection contingency. What is that for? Well, you want to make sure that the property you're buying is in the condition you want it to be in, the right neighborhood, but you don't have time to do all that work before you write an offer. So there's a period that you have to do it where you can back out if you see something that you don't like. Well, what kind of stuff do we get inspected? Well, let's look for termites. Let's look for a home inspection. You can sort of really systematically break down everything that goes into buying real estate, starting with that as your skeleton.
The problem is this: most people don't look at an agreement of sale until they have a time deadline deal that they're trying to get. And then all of a sudden they're trying to learn their way through an agreement of sale, all 19 pages of it, and they're up against other offers, or there's a highest and best due, and now they're trying to educate themselves on an agreement of sale, because the realtor can't just tell you, here, sign here, initial here, sign here, initial here. That's not the right thing for a realtor to do. You have to understand what you're signing and how you're making an agreement before you do it. You don't want to learn when you have a hot deal in front of you that you don't want anybody else to get a hold of. That's not the time to try to figure out an agreement of sale. So for me, I had put in a bunch of reps on all the properties that I already own and gone through it so much, but I realized this kid needs to put in a bunch of reps, we'll call them dry reps, without an actual deadline on the hook, so that when we have one ready to go, he can do it quickly and know what numbers and everything he's going to put into the agreement of sale. And that was a absolutely 100% free step. I don't know, it cost me 19 pages of paper and however much printer ink I used to get it into his hands, but it was a really free step that turned him into a much more sophisticated investor over a fairly short amount of time.
So that's how you'd recommend that new people trying to get started, that's one of the ways to make your...
Like I said, if I'm king of the universe, I'm going to forbid you to call Brandon or call David or call anybody else until you've put in that level of work. That's your test. Will you do that? Will you download an agreement of sale and do that part, and then come to somebody with an AOS, an agreement of sale that's marked up, and say to them, these are the remaining parts I don't understand. Can you explain to me how this goes? It's a lot easier for them to help you instead of them taking a toddler and trying to turn them into a real estate investor.
It certainly shows more respect for the person you're going to talk to as well.
Absolutely.
You're trying to skip the learning process by going right to the source and saying, just tell me what I'm supposed to do. But then you got to come back a million other times to ask a million other questions, as opposed to really having a grasp of understanding what goes on. I think that's good.
Yeah, and then let me throw this out there too. This kid was just getting started, and I care for him, and I care for his new life, and I really didn't want to be morally culpable for him making a decision. Like, I didn't want to bring him a deal and say, you should do this, and then they buy it and the furnace goes out and they're like, what the heck, you told me I should buy this property and now I'm stuck. So I really wanted him, we got to a point where he did on a triplex that he eventually bought. I didn't even go and see it with him because we had been through a bunch of places together. We put in really crazy low offers on a number of places that we knew we weren't going to get. But I told him, I'm like, you must do this. I command you as king of the universe to put in a super low offer on this property and to walk through it and to fill out a legit offer. So now it wasn't just, a stack of paper in my office. It was a stack of paper that was attached to real properties that he walked through, smells, sounds, neighborhoods, listing agents, his buyer's agent. It actually had real applicability. And there was no risk because he put in a really low offer that, the only thing he was trying out was the patience of his realtor, who was a pretty good sport because I brought her so many deals.
It's something, if you're an experienced investor right now, you the three of us are pretty experienced, we've done this for a while. I'm sure you've noticed as you're helping somebody who's brand new, it also helps maybe certify in your own mind, to remember the foundational stuff. I'm helping one of my buddies right now buy a property similar, 21 years old. And like just to remember all like the basic stuff, it's just a good practice I think for any legit experienced investor to do, is to help somebody that's new like answer these questions and figure this stuff out when they're first getting started. It's been really beneficial. Have you found that as well, Bryce?
Yeah, I think so. But tell me if this is true. Is this guy in Hawaii
Yes.
that you're mentoring?
Yeah.
So I guarantee in the back of Brandon's mind, what he's thinking is, I really hope that this market isn't overvalued right
Yeah.
now, and
Yeah.
I'm walking him into a deal that's he's gonna be upside down on it
Yep.
within a year or 2 years of him buying it, and then I'm the jerk,
Yep.
and whatever. I either have to financially bail him out, or I'm again morally culpable for his circumstances.
The best mentoring is more like almost like performance coaching. Like when I talk to my performance coach, Jason, his name's Jason Trees, when I talk to him, like, and I know Dave, you have the same thing with your coach. It's like they're not like he's not telling me what to do he never tells me what to do. He's asking me questions and he's making me come up with my own answers, and then I take my own action based on my own answers. And so it's kind of how I do my like pseudo mentoring, I guess, is like making him figure out his own steps. And if he has a question like, well, I can't figure out what this word, appeasement means or whatever, I don't know. And I'm like, oh, this is what it means. I can answer a question like that. But most of it is just kind of helping him logically work through what the next step is and by answering questions. Is that like that's how I kind of resolve a little bit of the like I'm not telling him to buy anything. I'm helping him figure out his own.
Well, the deal that this guy ended up buying, the triplex that he bought, I did not go to see it with him.
Yeah.
And I told him, I think this is a good deal from the outside, but I don't know. And I'm not going to tell you whether you should go through with this or not, because honestly, I don't want to be culpable if things go south after you buy and move into the place. So I've given you all the knowledge I know how to give you. I've prepared you with what I know, but now you have to walk through the threshold of that investment property on your own, like a man. So man up and do it, and I'm out of the picture. Call me if you have any questions or anything on how to, do whatever's next. But this is you alone doing it. Your name's going to be on the deed, not mine.
Yeah, that's good.
So, we walked him through it, and he did it. It was terrific. And now he's a landlord at 20. Now he's 21.
That's cool. That's really cool.
So he's a landlord at 21 years old.
Let's go back to your story again a little bit. I want to get more caught up on what you've done in the last year now. So,
Yes.
or the last couple of years since being on the show. So, what have you done? Where were you at? What was your portfolio size before? What have you done since? And then let's kind of walk through that last couple of years.
I'm going to give this caveat. Sometimes when I've listened to a bunch of your guys' podcasts, and sometimes you guys interview people that seem so incredibly accomplished that I listen to the podcast, and what I come away with is the same emotions of like scrolling Facebook and seeing people's vacations,
Yeah.
like their photos from their vacation, and you come away and you're like, well, it must be nice to be them, but I could never have that vacation or whatever. So before I say this, I know the temptation is that I'm trying to flex or whatever, and people are going to hear it and say, oh, that must be nice to be him. But there really are ways to do what I'm doing, and hopefully we can spell some of those out. So I basically doubled the revenues from my portfolio, went from 23 to 37 units. And I did that while simultaneously decreasing the geographical radius of my portfolio.
What do you mean? Like you just bought all in one area?
Yeah, I was tired of driving. I don't like driving a whole lot. So I bought places that were adjacent to the places I already owned by 1031 exchanging out of other places that I owned that were farther away. You're going to think I'm a spoiled brat because a lot of investors that I talk to are like, I would kill to have all of my properties in one city. But for me, I wanted to control the block and the neighborhood that I already had invested in. My market is Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, which is essentially an hour and change west of New York City. It is about an hour north of Philadelphia. Bethlehem, Allentown, and Easton comprise what's called the Lehigh Valley in Pennsylvania. It's the third largest metro area in the state. It has about 850,000 residents. And for my money, it's a perfect area for a number of reasons. One, it's growing. It's one of the only areas in the Northeast that the population is growing like gangbusters. And two, it is a gigantic logistics hub. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but FedEx and Amazon both have freight hubs in the Lehigh Valley, which means they land freight here. And then the Lehigh Valley is essentially one legal trucker's day drive to half of the nation's population. So that's key because it means it's a great area for logistics. And also the land here is, I would say, as cheap as you can get, as far east as you can get in the United States. So if you keep going east from where I am, you're in New York or you're in New Jersey, and prices tend to get a lot higher in those areas. Whereas the Lehigh Valley, by comparison, is still very well priced. I will guide my screen here so it doesn't get too crazy. Sorry. So, sorry to make you dizzy on Google Earth, but it's a terrific downtown. Bethlehem is. This is another reason I've invested in this area. The downtown is a historic downtown. It's somewhere that a lot of young professionals want to live. It has a lot of restaurants, which meant something before COVID, and will mean something again briefly. But it's somewhere where it's fun to live here. The Lehigh Valley it's a great place to invest. And if you're like a remote investor, like David from California, or somebody like him, this is an area that a lot of investors have moved into because the price ratio